Welcome everybody back to the final day of presentations here at Ananda Ashram. Our first presenter will be Naren Budhakar. Naren was born in Pune, India, into a Brahmin family. His grandfather was his first Sanskrit teacher. His background includes science, music, amongst much more, and exceptional tabla skills, as you must all know. He is co-director of the East-West Sanskrit School of Music here at Ananda Ashram, and I consider him a very good friend. Looking forward to this.
Shubha Prabhat, everyone. It's a great pleasure to present, share a little bit about Sanskrit for yet another year. My compliments and respect to Shantananda and Indira for putting this very meaningful weekend together. A word of appreciation for Andrea Baker and Anne Vial. Their wonderful presence strengthens the Sanskrit faculty at the ashram. I would like to dedicate my talk to our dear friend Scott Moss, whom we lost a couple of weeks ago. I worked with him very closely as part of the management for almost 4 years, every week sitting next to each other and discussing in various registers of voice, from baritone to soprano, what best we could do for the ashram. But the one commonality that he had with many like-minded people was the one thing he wished for the ashram was hope and unity. He was almost always optimistic about what the ashram would do. And in all the talks, what he intended was unity for the ashram. And therefore, the subject is something that was very dear to him, and it is befitting that we chose this for this year's presentation. I'm going to start talking about unity first, and we'll get to the hope later. The title itself, the United State of Jiāvātman and Paramātman, it's a little bit play on words, but the Jiāvātman and Paramātman will come to towards the end if time permits. I'm going to go to the next slide. Let's start talking about the concept of unity first from the empirical sciences very briefly, and then we'll move on to Sanskrit. Sometimes in mathematics, the number 1 is called unity. When they say that the answer of this particular equation is unity, it means 1, sine square plus cos square, many other examples. There is something beautiful about mathematics recognizing 1 as unity. And the reason for that is the earliest belief of the Pythagoreans. They, in fact, did not regard 1 as the number at all. They started calling 2 as the first number. For them, 1 wasn't a number, it was the progenitor of all numbers. So right here, there is something very philosophical. Even Bertrand Russell and Whitehead, when they wrote their Principia Mathematica, one of the derivations of integers, like the whole numbers, is you take 1, you add 1 more to it and you get 2, and add infinitum, you get all the numbers. Other than the mathematical trickery in this, there is something beautiful in it. And what it is we talked about 0 a couple of years ago, something that is devoid of all attributes. one is the first committal statement. It's the first committal statement. Going from 0 to 1 is a real start of something. It's a germ seed, and the rest is almost a foregone conclusion. This starts bordering on the Nasadiya Sukta, which is the Indian equivalent of Genesis. In the beginning, not only was there nothing, there was even no concept of nothingness. However, the slightest breath of whatever that was occultly present, that little perturbation was enough to proliferate into everything else. The origin of the universe, some of the theories are not very different from this. The slightest inequality in the distribution of the matter and energy, the slightest inequality in the distribution of matter and energy was able to proliferate into this gigantic cosmos. Evolutionary biology is not much different either. You start from a little germ of creation, and the evolutionary pressure and conditions will ensure all the biodiversity we see in this. So calling one as a committal statement, that's the progenitor of all numbers, is a very beautiful nuance. It's tempting to draw some parallels. One is the concept of sa in music. Sa is the root note. And right now I'm talking about the Indian classical music in particular. As we know, Indian classical music is modal. And what that means is the absolute key at which you start does not matter. Whether a song is in C sharp or D doesn't matter. In the Western classical music, there are specific connotations to various keys. For example, E flat, Eroica of Beethoven, it's considered heroic. In Indian music, the absolute key does not matter. But what matters is once you choose the root notes, it has implicit harmonics in it that are more, many of them are audible if you play the tanpura, not the digital one, the real thing. You can see all those, you can actually hear all those harmonics. And therefore sa, the root note, is considered the progenitor of the entire octave. In fact, it's tempting to digress a little bit and say that one of the greatest goddesses of Indian classical music, Srimati Kishori Amonkar, in her last days, she said that having sung music almost like meditation all her life, she had this epiphany at the age of 80 that she should not be singing the root note too much. It would be an audacity. Because it is the creator, it is the God of all the octave, and to access it again and again is as audacious as walking into the innermost sanctum of a particularly sacred temple. You should do it only once in a while, and only when you are very sure that you have sanctified yourself first. So this concept, another parallel is the first Yoga Sutra of Patanjali, Atha Yoga Anushasanam. Atha literally means here we go. That one committal step, it's like, when you resound that bell in the temple, it's announcing that I'm arriving, and that's undertaking the devotion. You arrive at the temple of the God, letting him know that I'm undertaking some sort of a devotion. So all those things that start from a germ seed and proliferate into diversity, for the Pythagoreans to recognize that in number one, speaks volumes about the concept of unity. Just a quick note, the binary language that the quantum computing uses, the qubits, is just 2 digits, it's 1 and 0. And although it's a pure convention, one can marvel at the coincidence. Those gates of logic, in the transistors, when the current passes through them, the symbol 1 stands for something positive or something that is on. It's a convention, but it was well thought of. And so, having discussed briefly the empirical sciences, we can move on to what Sanskrit does on many levels to the concept of unity. And it starts very much at the syntactical level. It starts at the level of language itself. Long before the philosophical implications come in, even in the act of talking or reciting or uttering, Sanskrit commits to unity. And one of the best known examples is Sandhi. This is no time to go into it, and I'm sure you are all experts at it. But when certain words or certain syllables need to be pronounced one after another, and if they have some sort of a phonetic love relationship that is beckoning for them to blend in, then Sanskrit makes a great science out of it. So the words, the syllables ending with certain phonological attributes can easily blend into each other, so they undergo a little bit of modification. And it almost forms like a new word, but it is such a seamless blending of the two words that not only it provides the ease of pronunciation, it encompasses the sound, the intent, the meaning all together, and that's the real concept of unity. The word sandhi itself is a sandhi, and I'm sure you know about it. Samadhi. One comment on this is, for the language of Sanskrit to create this science out of sandhis is not just a sleight of hand for the ease of pronunciation. It required a very nuanced understanding, and we have a great neurolinguistic here, Paras Kenpyuk. It requires a nuanced understanding of starting from the human anatomy. Where do we produce the sounds from? The various positions of the tongue. All of you have studied it in the Sanskrit class. I'm just giving you the synopsis of it. The positions of tongue and its attaching to the dentals or labials or palate with a certain amount of aspiration, strongly aspirated or weakly aspirated. This anatomical and sonic precision needed to be understood for them to come up with this concept of sandhi at all. So again, we can marvel at what unity these old grammarians were seeking. The reason why this is pertinent in Sanskrit is because it's not as if, and Ken knows much more about this, it's not as if other languages do not have the conjoined pronunciations, but they are primitive compared to what Sanskrit has done. The nuance of pronunciation and the precision of the words can give rise to something in the word of language that can be comparable to the prime numbers in mathematics. It's unique. And therefore, from artificial intelligence to computer languages, it has been hypothesized that Sanskrit could be a very ideal medium. So you see, the subject matter goes beyond recitation. Next slide. Again, we're discussing what Sanskrit does to unity at the linguistic level, and we'll see what philosophy lies underneath. But Panini recognized about 600-700 activities, and then he associated a few verb roots with them, maybe a couple of thousand. It seems like a big number, but it really isn't. And the point is, from those verb roots, so many nouns and adjectives proliferate, like thousands or millions of them. And the point I'm making is, if one knows these basic activities, a few hundred of them that Panini enlisted, the chances are that you can second guess the entire vocabulary of Sanskrit with a fair amount of precision. There might be some gray areas, but you will be in the ballpark. This, again, allowing the germ seed, just give you the germ seed, and then it proliferates into a massive understanding, is beautiful. It is generally recognized that verb is the most important part of the sentence. In English, when they discuss the etymology, they usually give the Latin verb roots. But again, the linguistic experts can corroborate with this. English falls far behind the German language when it comes to interconnected verb roots. And although I'm not a linguistic expert of all these languages, I have a good reason to believe that Sanskrit actually excels at it by many degrees of magnitude. So what is beautiful about it is taking an activity, creating a verb root out of this, and then creating so many meanings with adjectives and adverbs, nouns out of it, is recognizing the various attributes of a few simple actions. And that recognition involves encompassing the very existence and breaking it down to their root causes. So I wanted to amuse myself with some examples of the verb gama. Gama is basically to go. It signifies movement. And you can find many verb roots like this, but I have chosen this example. Charayveti, this movement, again, we studied yesterday. Ashanama manushyanam, ya baddha pradhavanti, those who are bound by the hope are busybodies, they keep moving. The migration, the movement, both in physical and metaphysical sense, was very important for our ancestors because the movement ensured freedom from stagnation. And therefore, it would be amusing to see how Sanskrit treated the verb gama. Gati, motion. I'm sorry about the syntax, the interface between the PC and the Mac is not very good. This dichotomy of PC and Mac could be an example of how attempts are made not to unify things and patentize them so that you can subscribe only to their particular thing. Gatika, somebody who is in motion, who is traveling. And then comes the word agatika. Agatika is one who has no motion, one who is stagnant. And in fact, because of that, that word agatika has come to be used as an expression for somebody who has no recourse left, who is helpless. Agatika. There is nothing you can do about it. An animal trapped or human being stuck. Arjuna Vishada Yoga, the very first chapter of Bhagavad Gita, he was agatika. He had the chariot and he had his bow and the dhanusha, and yet he wasn't able to do anything about it. It took the Lord to make him gatika again. So starting from the verb gama, we come to the greatest philosophy of stagnation. It keeps going on. Gatvara, something that is going. But again, its philosophical implication is something that is going also means something that is not staying, something that is not going to be here for very long. And suddenly it opens up the whole world, something that is transient, something that is non-lasting. And therefore it addresses the entire nature of universe and life itself. The law of entropy, that things go towards disarrangement, that just comes from the word gama. See how many things we're already covering. Gatvara, something that is transient. Gantavya, the place where you want to, something that is desirable to go to, destination. In my hometown, there are signboards at the train station that are written in Marathi, which is derivative of Sanskrit, Gantavya Sthanam. And if you don't know what to read, you are going to miss your train. Because you need to know what destination you are going to, and that's what it's trying to tell you. Gamana is just going. Sahagamana. Then you start adding prefixes to it. Sahagamana is going together. Saha. And then, so these are some of the few forms that come from the verb. And then you start adding prefixes. And then it takes on a whole different, it opens another universe of meaning. Atigama, ati is like exceed, ati is a superlative adjective. Atigama is to exceed, to surpass. Okay. So now we are talking about excellence because surpass is going even further. So let's see where this verb root is taking us. Atigama is to surpass. Adhigama to accomplish. Because again, just so you know, there are many meanings of each of these words, but I'm taking the one that are most in vogue. Adhigama is accomplish. Accomplish is, it's not exactly going, but you know, there is an object that you didn't have with you, and then you went to it. In other words, you accomplished a certain task. So there is some going involved. You see how many meanings this language is stretching, and you can see the commonality. It's beautiful. Anugama, anu is to follow. Anugama is to follow. Anugamin, a follower. So just this word gama is again giving you some dictums on what to follow. Mahajano yena gatasa pantha. What is the great way to travel? The great wise men, the path that the wise men traveled, that is the one you should follow. Mahabharata, I think, Vanaparva, the dialogue between Yudhishthira and the angel, the Yaksha. So Anugama is to follow. Apagama. Apa has like a negative connotation. So you can almost guess where this is going. Something that has gone bad. In other words, departure but passing away. You see the shades of grey. Apagama, something that has gone, well, bad is a strong sentence. Apagama is something that has departed, or to depart. Apigama, sorry, that's the wrong syntax, don't read the Sanskrit. Apigama is enter or join. Because there is some going there. If you enter an assembly, there is a going from one place to another. There's a specific word for it, apigama. Abhigama is approach or to undertake something. If you want to approach a woman, you would use the word abhigama. If you use something else, and if she understands Sanskrit, you might be in trouble. Avagama, ava is just like falling low. Avanati, unnati is progress. Avanati is the digress. So avagama could be to descend, but philosophically it means falling in bad times or lowering your moral standards. Agama, now we are using the prefix a, to come, agama. Agata just comes from that, one who has arrived. This next one, agantu, is interesting. Something that has come, but pretty much uninvited and almost unwanted. That's the connotation. Yes? Yeah.
So the gum could have something to do with intention, yeah?
No, gum is to go.
Yeah.
It is in that connotation that this verb is used.
But could it be to go, to have some intention, to go, to follow?
Sure. I mean, so, you know, when you say anugamin, the intention is implicit because you wouldn't follow something that your heart wouldn't yearn for. So, of course, that's the whole point. So, it's without saying it literally, it is saying that when you are anugamin, you have undertaken your intention to follow the righteous path or whatever it is. So, yes, that intent is hinted at, no question about it. So, I was talking about agantu. It has, is it okay to postpone it because I'm just in the flow? Yeah. We'll talk later. Agantu has a connotation of something that came, is coming, but almost uninvited. In the Ayurveda, there are maladies that are recognized that are caused by the exogenous either viruses, any exogenous causes that cause a disease. It's not as if you didn't exercise and you ate badly and then you had blood pressure or whatever. Partially you have to blame yourself for it. But the Agantu maladies are, let's say, viruses, poisons, even things like earthquakes and fires. Although Gyaneshwar says that know that even natural calamities are the actions of your own karmas, and there is a reason to believe that when we do so much damage to the environment, rest of the things follow, but that's another subject. The point is these exogenous maladies are called agantu. So agantuka is a word for a stranger. And somebody arrived and he's an agantuk. We don't know who is, he's a stranger. And not in a very welcoming way. You're a stranger, you don't belong here in that sense. So see where this verb is taking us. Now agamika. Agamika is relating to the future. Because again, how does it translate to the verb go? We're going towards the future every second. And if we anticipate what is happening in the future, then we are anticipating where we are going. So again, that going is there. And so agamika is relating to the future. And agamin is something that is impending. So again, from the simple verb, we have gone distance with it. Udgama, ud is to rise. Udgama is the origin of rising of something. Durgama is difficult to navigate. It's very difficult to go. The passes in the Himalaya, they are durgama. You cannot scale them. You cannot go there. Now, parigama is to go around. You know, the perimeter, the word peri, actually really comes from pari. Pari is to go around, a circumference, or even go through, but to scale the entire length in a way. Now, pragama, pra is a positive connotation, to go forward. Pragama is to go forward. The word pragati, which we all know, progress, comes from the pragama. And the best thing that we know, sangha and satsanga, there is a ga in it. Going in a good way. That sangha is, coming and going is the same thing. You know, coming is just going in a different direction. It's a matter of polarity, and quantum physics says that directionality is not universal, it can be reversible. So, Sangha, if you understand ga as coming rather than going, and sam is again together, sandhi, the same thing. Sangha is coming together, and when we make it a satsanga, a good coming together, we have a conference like this. So starting from the simple verb, this is what Sanskrit allows you to do. This is, again, let me reiterate, is not just the sleight of the hand or some phonetic cleverness. It is recognizing the implicit attributes and intentions, as Shantananda said, in many diverse things that can be connected by a simple activity, and it has so many shades of meaning. When you have the verbs that are connected like this, they take you to a joyride of meanings. And when they are disconnected from each other, it becomes a brutal memorizing by heart without any context of the wholeness. And I'm happy to say that Sanskrit does that wholesome thing better than many other languages. That is just on the syntactic level. And now let's go to the next one. So we started from the empirical sciences of unity. Then we went to the syntactic level. I have till 11, right? Okay. And now we are talking about the supreme unity of Sanskrit. The word yoga, I'm going to rush through this, comes from the verb root yuja. You all know that, to unite. When the verb yuja is used for a limited or selfish motive, it's called yuti. It's a convenient arrangement to come together for some selfish purposes. When it used for a little more philanthropic purposes, the social level, it's called yojana, planning. But when it is used for philosophical purposes, it becomes a yoga. And that yoga is the joining of Jiāvātman and Paramātman that we started the presentation with. And there is one beautiful definition of yoga that I came across, and I'm just going to read it for you. First of all, the yoga is supposed to be physical, mental, and spiritual. And unfortunately, I'm known to speak my mind without being diplomatic. The mental and spiritual part is almost non-existent in the yoga that is taught in the Western world. Lululemon is a good example. That does not do anything to the mind and spirit. Yoga is practiced worldwide, but yoga in the Western world often entails a modern form of hatha yoga and a posture-based physical fitness, stress relief, and relaxation technique, all of which are good, but they cannot be bereft of the other things. It consists largely of asanas. This differs from traditional yoga in India, which focuses on meditation and release from worldly attachments. If you're not practicing that, you're missing the whole point. And that's why I made sure that I included this slide in it. We can go to the next one. To me, the language of Sanskrit that proposed Advaita Vedanta, just that one sentence would be enough to talk about unity in Sanskrit. Because what better anecdote for unity than Advaita Vedanta? It's the ultimate unity. It's the Sanskrit language that the Advaita Vedanta has used as its medium to teach us that. This is the ultimate unity. In the Mundaka Upanishad, I'm just going to rush through this, and in other texts also, I think it is Shveta also, and something in the Rig Veda. There is a beautiful analogy of two birds perched on the same branch of a tree. One bird is enjoying the fruit, is busy eating the figs, while the other bird is just witnessing everything. And that is your Jiāvātman and Paramātman. The Jiāvātman is busy enjoying the fruit, being excited, and invariably being disappointed, because the two things are the same. While there is another bird perched on the same branch that is just a witness, that bird is watching. And what Mundaka Upanishad says is those two birds are present in every sentient being. In fact, all sentient beings are one in that attribute. We have that Jiāvātman, we have that Paramātman. There is a Paramātman that is witnessing our busyness, and it is to meditate upon that Paramātman is the whole point of Advaita Vedanta. Meditation and yoga are the prescribed tools for it, but the unity of Jiāvātman and Paramātman would be the ultimate unity, and the quantum physics nature of reality is uncannily in agreement with this. The reason why I bring it is, first of all, I do have a science background, and the only reason why I study both science and philosophy is to be marveled every day at how much together they are. There are no juxtapositions that are disagreeable. It is one's bias that makes them disagreeable. Things are all one. When people started to identify the nature of reality, they started with gross substance. Then they tried to break it down to individual particles. So they got to the molecules. They found a way to degrade that to atoms. Then they realized that atom was not the smallest unit. There's a nucleus in it that rebounded the bombardment of the particles back. And Rutherford was as surprised at the fact that the beam got bounced back. He said, it was his word, I was as astonished by this phenomenon as one would be if you shot, not a bullet, but if you shot a cannonball at a tissue paper and it bounced it right back. This surprise was several million times more than that. That has to do with the strong nuclear force. Then he realized there is something that is holding the power, the nucleus. And then the scientists were able to degrade the nucleus and release the quantum particles. And when they went into the root of what that quantum particles were, at one point they realized that those particles were so sukshma, they were so subtle that you could not put your finger on them, and you could not any longer say that this is my electron and this is yours. Because at that level, although you can demonstrate the movement of electrons, because you see the light here and there is photons, you cannot put your finger on it because that's a quantum interference. The interference collapses and you get the dead corpse for the nature of reality. And if you want to be pleased with it, enjoy, but that's not what it is. It's always a little bit evasive. And therefore, they realize that at one point, when you become sukshma, you become universal. It is just the electron-ness that remains. It's the proton-ness that remains. Trying to pick a single particle becomes an arrogant act of egotism to want to acquire something that was never meant for your personal enjoyment. The drop of ocean becomes universal by merging into the grand ocean. The drop of water, when it merges with the grand ocean, only then it becomes universal. Then it is just the presence of the body of water. The individual droplets do not remain. Then the quantum physicists realize that as we understand right now, the ultimate nature of the sukshma reality is there are no discrete entities. There is no me, there is no you. There are no discrete particles either. There are just quantum fields of energy. And whatever you perceive as a manifest phenomenon that you can look at, that this is the tree, that is separate from everything else, is nothing but at the deepest level, the slight perturbation in the quantum field. I'm going to say this again. There are just the fields of energy, whatever you want to call it, and the slight perturbations in it are what we call as manifest. Now let me say another sentence. There is the energy of consciousness, and everything that arises out of it is but a transient passing perturbation. I have almost said the same sentence, and it's wonderful to see how much they agree. So, let me conclude with the final slide about the hope. I think I still have 7-8 minutes. Yeah. So, yeah. The feeling of hope has evolutionary biological significance. Doesn't come out of nothing. It has tied with our sense of self. And the evolutionary biology says that there are survival advantages to having hope. When you feel hopeful about something, the chances are that you will make that extra effort to get through it. If you resign yourself to the fate, the chances are that you will invite the impending doom even sooner. Even in the cancer patients, it has been found in the terminal cancer patients that some sort of a prayer will increase your immunity in a very perceptible manner, and that will add days or moments to your life. One cannot say that it's not significant. So there is a survival advantage in having hope. Motivation, hope makes you motivate. Who knows whether that hope is misplaced or not? But this is almost the feedback mechanism. If somebody asks whether my hope is naive in the betterment of future, what he or she is not understanding is putting the cart before the horse. Having hope itself is a motivation, and when you have the motivation, there is no telling what you might accomplish. So instead of asking whether it is worth accomplishing or something, it is just good to have hope, because then the chances of accomplishment increase. Is the neuroplasticity. Social benefits, excuse me. If a group of people are stuck in some unfortunate circumstance, having a collective hope will motivate them to do certain things together. If you're a war-stricken country, if you're an epidemic-stricken country, or if a group of 7 or 8 people are cornered somewhere, knowing that they face the same danger and knowing that we have each other triggers some sort of hope, which increases your chances of turning that outcome into something less undesirable or even more desirable. So let's appreciate the fact that hope came to us, and I'm not even talking about the supreme consciousness. On the most practical biological level, it conferred several survival advantages, and therefore hope is to be treasured without worrying about whether it is worth hoping for something. The act of hope itself can give rise to a lot of beautiful things. And then we'll end this with the last slide. This is Kalidasa's poem called Salutation to the Dawn. Dawn is a new day, and that brings hope. We'll just do this together if you want, because I just remembered that I'm supposed to do one verse together and break it down. So let it be this. This is Kalidasa's ultimate poem for the hope. It's called Salutation to the Dawn. Adya bhavaya sudinam. You have to ignore the syntax and just read English if you want to. If you want to, just repeat after me. Basically, lo and behold, this beautiful day, sudinam. I won't go for each word, we don't have time for that. But lo and behold, watch, look at this beautiful day. It could almost be good for today, it's a beautiful day. Jiāvātman kala esha. This is the life itself. This day, today is the life itself. Remember, he's going to elaborate on that. Today is the life, not tomorrow, not yesterday. There are biological reasons for it, let alone philosophical. Next. Pranasya prana. Not only is this day the life, it's the life of the life itself. Pranasya prana. Asmin swalpakale. In this transient moment, but it is real because it's right now, in this transient moment, swalpakale, swalpa is small. Satyamaye tava sata satyam tishtati. Satyamaye tava sata satyam tishtati. In this truthful moment, all the reality and the verity of your life, your firm beliefs, they only exist in this moment, and that's all you need. There is a little more, I think you were able to, yes. Vikasa nandena, with the glory of growth. Vikasa is growth. Ananda is the bliss, not glory, bliss. With the bliss of the promise of growth. Karma shriya. Now the word shriya is associated with prosperity or wealth. It's another name for Lakshmi. Karma shriya, your only wealth is karma. You know, on this itself you can talk for 10 minutes. The only swatantra, the only freedom you have is the karma yoga. Entire Bhagavad Gita, above all, is karma yoga. Karmanye vadhikaraste, ma phaleshu kadachana. The only choice you have is to do your righteous action. The consequences are not your concern, but if you think about it, being able to choose your action is the only freedom you really need. The choice at the quantum level is being discussed in scientific papers. Is there a choice in the quantum uncertainty? And there are certain papers that say that that choice exists. This is where we are really going into the Vedanta. But the karma swatantriya, doing the right thing, is only thing that you need, because really it becomes the art for the sake of art. It becomes a seva, it becomes a karma yoga. So when he says karma shriya, it's the glory, it's your only wealth. The rest will happen automatically or won't. It's almost immaterial. Karma shriya. Saundarya shobhaya. By the divine beauty. Yastu swapna. Yesterday was but a dream. Shvastu abhasa. Tomorrow is an illusion. It hasn't happened yet. And you want to believe in it, but if the sun goes down tonight, there will be no tomorrow. It's a dream. It's an illusion. Karma kushalataya acharate adya, acharati adya. Karma kushalaya. By the clever karmas, by doing the right, kushal is expert. Karma is the karma. When the karmas are done expertly, yojakas tatar durlabha, the concoctor is the more important ones. The karmas are always there. By doing the karmas with a tact, with cleverness, they become the liberator from the karmas themselves. What happens once you do your karmas in a skillful manner, as guided by the scriptures? Gata dinani, the days bygone, Ananda swapnamayani bhavanti. Ananda swapnamayani bhavanti. Although the past is but a dream, the bygone days, by your choice of what you are doing today, become like a beautiful, blissful dream. Your actions today are capable of turning your past into a blissful dream, and also bhavi dinani, the future days, asha prabhaya, jwalanti. By your actions today, your future days will start glowing like a flame of hope and asha. They will become glorious, they will become luminescent by your actions today. Atah sudinam. Therefore, this beautiful day, adya samyak bhavaya. Behold this beautiful day, reminding all these things. Esha, this is Ushabhivandana. This is the salutation to this beautiful dawn. Om Shanti.